Guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, I wanted to talk about the two major tournaments that just happened, like 2 days ago. And that is the Decade MCS, as well as the other MCS. They're both MCSs. One is the Master Circuit Series, and one is the Decade Meta Championship Series. Both of these are massive tournaments that are held by two massive creators in the Master Duel community, and both are held kind of differently, or like they function differently and are played in different formats. I wanted to talk about them because of some of the interesting developments. Now, obviously, Kashtira is now out, and so that is going to change up the meta quite significantly and change up what is, some of the best decks, etc. So here we have Decades, which we're going to talk about first. If you don't know, this one is a bit different because it's an invitation-based one. Basically, it's an invitational for all of the players who have topped in previous DK tournaments or a TCG YCS, which is very specific and it's kind of odd. It also is a one deck, 15 card side deck, which is normal. I think a lot of people are doing side decks and stuff like that. But notably, it is a single elimination best of 3. So it's just a full bracket, and it's not actually a Swiss into Top Cut like most other Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments. So that does change some things there. And this is why I wanted to talk about this one first instead of the MPT one, because I think this one doesn't really give us as good of an idea as to what the actual meta would be, because it's less people, it's more people trying to play the best of decks, as well as it's a single elimination best of 3 with sighting, and there's no best of 1 section. So that does mean that in Master Duel, that best of 1 does matter more, and it's not really showcased in this one. Though I do think that a best of 3 is probably the best way to play a tournament, but alas. Also, not having a Swiss round does matter. So there's that. Basically, if you get one unlucky matchup, you're just kind of screwed and you don't get a top cut. Anyway, so here are the top 32 deck lists. I'm not going to go through every single deck list, but here is the breakdown, which is more so what I wanted to go over. We have 10 Pearly in the top 32, which is the biggest of the slice, and basically everything else falls way short. We have 5 Kashtira, we have 3 Branded Despia, 3 Dragonlink, 2 Rika, 1 Armed Dragon, 1 Dragoonity, 1 Exosister, 1 Labyrinth, which is actually quite surprising, and you'll see why. 1 Mathmech, 1 Mayakashi, 1 Mikonko, 1 Punk, and 1 Sword Soul Tenyi. So there you go. That's basically it for the breakdown. Obviously, there are always some like random things in here, like Mayakashi, Mikonko, etc. But all in all, I'm not really too surprised by this, except for maybe Kashtira not seeing as much representation. I figured that would have been a little bit higher, but I do think that, especially in its first outing, a lot of people are going to be expecting Kashtira and be side decking against that, or main decking even against that. I guess the biggest other surprise is how few Labyrinth there is. I think Labyrinth is probably like the 3rd best deck right now, right up there with Kashtira and Pearly, but alas. So yeah, let's quickly go through this, and I'll just show you. We have Pearly winning, not surprising there. Playing main decking the 2 Drolls as well as side decking the 3rd one. Side decking other things like Evenly Matches, Harpy's Feather Duster, Red Reboot, additional thrusts, etc. But yeah, the Red Reboot is in here for Labyrinth, as you would expect. But yeah, all in all, even main decking Book of Eclipse, which is great against Kashtira. So yeah, kind of makes sense there. And then second place was also Pearly, running similar things. Not main decking Droll, though, so I'm sure that came up in their first game. But instead playing the Fenris. So there you go. Next up, we have Dragonlink. Now, I know a lot of people are like, Dragonlink is not a good deck because Kashtira. Here's the thing. Dragonlink is still good. It just has one slightly losing matchup in which you can just like sideboard a whole bunch of things. So I think it's much better post-siding actually against Kashtira. And 60 card list, pretty standard. On top of that, I do think that there are a lot of things that you can even main deck to help you beat Kashtira. And even with that being said, with just a Rise Heart, I think you're probably fine, because Shifter is at 2, so that does change the math a little bit on the likelihood of seeing the Shifter, but not all that much. But yeah, even with that, like a Rise Heart is not that big of a deal. It's not like you're going to get Diablosis or anything like that. So there you go. Dragon Link coming in top 4, as well as another Pearly main decking triple Divicarnate, which is very interesting. I'm not sure I hate this, but I'm not sure I love this. Divicarnate is very, very strong against Pearly and Kashtira specifically. Other than that, it's not really all that great. Like, it's really bad against most other decks, at least in the main deck. Yeah, because it's also not very good going first. And since you do have a side deck, I'm really not a fan of putting this in the side and putting Max C in... Or, sorry, I'm not a fan of putting this in the main and putting Max C in the side. But, alas, they did pretty well, so can't really blame them. We have more Dragon Link as well in the top 8, as well as this branded pile. Apparently, 60-card branded is the way to go, and you'll see that later. But this one is playing a 40-card variant, pretty standard list. Nothing really too interesting here. Moving on, we have our first Kashtira player playing 40 cards, the one Planet Pathfinder. I actually agree with this. I think having too many Planet Pathfinders is a little frustrating. But they're even playing Extrav. They're playing the Double Pot of Desires. I don't know about Extrav. Yeah, I just don't know. It might be good. It might not be. I feel like Desires is just most of the time better. But alas, there you go. All in all, though, this is a pretty normal list. Nothing too interesting going on here. Besides main decking triple evenly, or triple Lightning Storm, which is kind of odd, seeing as how you do have the opportunity to side deck, and it is a best of 3. I don't know why we're side decking in such, like, determined going second cards. Like, I would much rather see this as, like, another hand trap, like Gamma, or more additional cards for, like, going first or pushing with your engine. But alas, there you go. And then, yeah, just more of this. Here's Exo Sister, here's Rika. Rika didn't do too bad. I mean, it's fine, but here's a random 60-card Rika list, which is weird. 45 card Dragoonid. I don't know what this is. This is... Sometimes people show up with stuff like this. Makonko, Hooray, more Kashtira. More Kashtira. This time I'm actually playing the tier cache, which is Pog. And then, yeah. So, we'll just go on to the Master Circuit series, because the rest of those are just similar lists. But yeah, this one is a bit different. Top 16 is, I believe, where the cutoff is for the top cut. But this one I know is a... oh yeah, here we go. Here we can see the breakdown as well, but the format is a 256 player tournament, so it's a bit bigger than the previous one. It's a best of 1 Swiss with a best of 3 top cut with no time limit. So there's that, and then a 15 card side deck for top cut and a 1 deck no side Swiss rounds. So there you go. This is why I think that this one is a little bit better in understanding what the actual meta is, because it is that best of 1 Swiss, which I feel like Swiss is much easier in determining like what actually is top decks. And the main reason for this is just because of the fact that like the decks are going to lose every once in a while. And for example, if you have an inconsistent deck, like for example Kashtira, having a like best of 1 single limb kind of wouldn't tell you what's going on, but still having a best of 1 is going to tell you like, hey, here's still what's kind of doing the best. So here we can see the top 16 breakdown. We have 3 Pearly, pretty expected, 3 branded. Now this is interesting, and you'll see why in a second. Yeah, branded is very interesting, keep note of that. 2 Kashtira behind branded, but still pretty highly represented. But honestly, not really that big of a cut. And here's what I want to talk about in particularly with Kashtira. I think a lot of people, or a lot of top players are specifically saying that Kashtira is significantly worse than it was in the TCG, and I absolutely agree. I think that Kashtira right now is just not very good. Or at least like not the best deck. And the main reason for this, I think, is it loses a lot of consistency. I think a lot of people have said this. Losing 2 of the field spell, as well as the 1 Fenrir, as well as, more importantly, I think, is the losing of 2 Pot of Prosperity. Pot of Prosperity was absolutely crucial for a lot of Kashtira, being able to either search out that additional board breaker, or more specifically, being able to start your combo with something like a Unicorn or a Fenrir is very, very nice, and being able to just immediately see that off of the Pot of Prosperity, and on top of that, being able to banish specific cards that you can then attach with the Arise Heart did matter a lot as well. Like, for example, detaching a Garura, banishing a Garura, or banishing a, an Anchor Drill. It's not an Anchor Drill. The Infinite Track one that, like, protects your monster if it's Xe material. So stuff like that is also another reason why I think Prosperity was so much better for Kashtira, specifically in the TCG. And with it at 1, I do think that that matters quite significantly. Also, on top of that, prior to the first wave of hits to Kashtira in the TCG, we had no thrust. There's no triple tactics thrust, which meant that we didn't have access to those additional outs more effectively, right? We couldn't see our, we couldn't see Herald as often, we couldn't see triple tactics talents as often, and stuff like that. So there are a lot of things like that that I do believe that Kashtira kind of benefits, loses from basically having in the game, or, having limited. Also, we also don't have Diablosis, so there's that, which definitely helps in the TCG. So all in all, I do think that the deck is significantly worse. And I really didn't think a lot of that would matter, but it turns out it was very important. It turns out hitting an inconsistent deck and making it more inconsistent does hurt the deck quite significantly. So there you go. Also, only 1 tier cache can matter. But all in all, there's the breakdown. We also have Labyrinth up here, as well as 2 Math Mech, which is very funny. 1 Dragon Link, 1 Flu, somehow. 1 Naturia Runic, as well as 1 Blackwing. So, very interesting, all things considered. But mostly I want to talk about these 4 here, because I think these are actually the best decks. The Pearly, the Branded, the Kashtira, and the Labyrinth. And I think Dragon Link's probably also in there as like the 5th best. Math Mech just, I don't know, Math Mech does Math Mech things sometimes. But yeah, we have the first place winner is a 60 card branded list, and I'm absolutely stealing this. It is so incredibly interesting. They are playing Nadir Servant as well as a more extensive Dogmatica list, which is very interesting. Main decking Droll for Pearly, playing the 1 Grass, etc., etc. Playing Daruma Karma Cannon as a target off of Triple Tech. They're also playing Double Retribution, which came up several times, which is very interesting. Also, Borlode Furious Dragon, which is basically just DPE. Kind of. It's a worse DPE, basically. And lots of stuff like that. It's a very tight extra deck, very interesting list as well, and it's very, very interesting. And I will probably play this. This deck performed incredibly. It was very, very cool. Moving on, we have ourselves, also side deck. Side decking things like Red Reboot and the like. Lots of side deck hate for specifically the Labyrinth build. Denko Sekka, Ghost Bell, Red Reboot, Harpies, Lightning Storm, Even. So there you go. And then we have, of course, Pearly coming in second. Only two Pearlily, which is kind of weird, but it does make sense. And then, other than that, pretty standard. Main decking the Book of Eclipse for the Kashtira, I would imagine. Yeah, Book of Eclipse is just good in general. It also hits Pearly being able to like flip their cards face down, so like to prevent a yeep. There's that. More side deck hate, like Red Reboot for reasons. This card is still legal, don't know why, but alas, here we are. We also have a top 4 of Math Mech. Sometimes Math Mech does Math Mech things and just gets to play Cybers over and over. I think this one is definitely helped by having a best of 1 specifically, because it turns out if you just access code OTK your opponent, doesn't really matter if you go second. Smile. So, yeah. They're also main decking Dogoran as a small world bridge, which is very, very funny. Next up, we have Labyrinth. This deck actually performed very well. I saw a lot of the games. This deck is very, very strong. That's it. Main decking Triple Strike, which is kind of odd. Mostly the other main deck options for traps are not honestly much. It's just Dimensional Barrier and Terrors of the Overroot, and that's it. But yeah, Strike is very, very strong. Same with Skill Drain. And then they're side decking the Eradicator Epidemic Virus, additional Dimensional Barriers, and Deck Devastation Virus, as well as additional hand traps. But yeah, you can see lots of hand traps in here as well. I do like the Gamma. I think that's very smart. But yeah, it's almost more hand traps than it is even actual traps. So there's that. Good list. If it was a best of one, I would probably put in the Eradicator. But they ended up getting to the top cut and were able to side deck that in. But I would probably just play that one. Here's our first Kashtira in top 8. Playing Small World. That's the big thing here. Small World is very, very strong in just like additionally in finding the additional thing like Kashtira Unicorn if you need to. So there's that. Next up, we have ourselves another top 8, which is another branded list. This time a 40 card list. I do tend to prefer 40 card lists, mostly because I am unlucky and do not draw nearly as well as someone like Karibo. So there's that. And then more Labyrinth, more, I believe this is, I actually don't know what this is. What is this? It's not gonna tell me. Cool. More branded, another 60 card branded list. Notably, this list is, I think, very similar in nature to the previous list. But yeah, turns out 60 card branded is still very strong. Oh, here's Math Mech. 2 Math Mech in the top 8. Pretty nice. And then the rest is just, Kashtira branded, or not branded, Kashtira, Labyrinth, etc., etc. Stuff we've already seen. So there you go. Honestly, it's quite impressive seeing branded doing as well with just the one branded fusion, but the list that this is specifically playing is less focused on the actual fusion summoning and more so focused on just like being this control strategy, utilizing like Bestials and stuff like that. And if it does end up getting to fusion summon, it was very, very strong with its fusion summons, being able to end on like Borreload Fusion and a Mirror Jade and maybe an additional like Rindrum or Granganol or something like that to give that additional interaction. Also, Retribution is very, very strong right now, being able to stop things like Theosis, like the Labyrinth traps, the runic cards, etc., etc. So, all in all, though, I do think that this was a very enlightening format and a very enlightening event, just because it was so very changed from what you would expect. You're expecting Kashtira, you're expecting Pearly, and then there's, branded in here, and it was very cool. So yeah, all in all, that's basically all that I wanted to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, like it very much, so appreciate it. And if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh, then just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.